We found out that there were a lot of porcupines probably told to the royals and even to Harry when they met her. And in order to cover up, oh my God.
Prince William has issued a demand so bold, so unprecedented, that it has left the entire world holding its breath. Unless Harry and Meghan can provide concrete proof addressing serious questions about Archie's birth, their son could face the loss of every royal privilege, title, and financial benefit he was born into. What was once a deeply private family tension has now exploded into a full-scale public confrontation between two brothers who, not so long ago, were each other's closest allies. But how did it come to this? The answer begins not inside the palace walls, but just outside them, with a persistent stranger, a veteran journalist named Tom Bower, who showed up night after night with a warning no one inside could afford to ignore. For nearly 2 weeks, royal security had been logging the presence of an unfamiliar figure lingering near the palace perimeter. He appeared consistently around 10 in the evening when London fog swallowed the streetlights and the city grew quiet. He wasn't aggressive, he didn't shout or wave signs, he simply stood, watching, waiting, studying every vehicle that passed through the gates. Security assumed he was a persistent tabloid photographer or an overzealous royal watcher. They approached him, he left. He came back the following evening. On his third appearance, he stepped deliberately into view of a security camera and addressed it directly. His name, he said, was Tom Bower, an investigative journalist who had spent years tracking the Sussex household. He had information of the gravest kind. He needed it relayed to Prince William. He was not joking. Security escalated the reports. On the fourth night, the fifth, the sixth, Tom kept returning with the same controlled, deliberate message. Eventually, the reports reached William himself. His first reaction was dismissal, another tabloid operator manufacturing a story. But when he sat down and listened closely to the sixth recorded exchange, something shifted in him. The tone was different. The specificity was different. This didn't sound like someone fishing for a front-page headline. What exactly did he say about the child? William asked his team, his voice dropping. The reply came carefully. Tom was claiming there were serious irregularities surrounding Meghan's pregnancy and the circumstances of the birth. William went quiet. He stared at nothing for a long moment. Then he made a decision. He would meet with Tom. No press, no official record, no announcement. The meeting was arranged for a gray, drizzly London afternoon in a tightly secured private room. Tom arrived composed, a tall, lean man with silver-streaked hair and the unhurried manner of someone who had spent decades navigating powerful institutions. There was no flattery in his entrance, no nervousness. He sat down and looked the prince directly in the eye. "Your Royal Highness," he began, "I have not come here for money or notoriety. I followed the Sussexes during their years in Britain, and I have continued to do so. There are details surrounding the pregnancy and birth of Archie that simply do not align, not with the official account and not with what I know from my own reporting. If these questions are never addressed, what eventually surfaces will dwarf anything that came out of that television interview." William kept his hands still under the table. His voice remained measured. "You are raising the possibility that Meghan did not carry the child herself. Do you have evidence to support this, or is this conjecture?" Tom did not flinch. "I don't have documentation that I'm able to present today. That's precisely why I came to the royal family. Someone with access and authority to investigate properly needs to ask these questions, and the window for doing that quietly is closing." The meeting ended without ceremony. William thanked him and showed him out. Then he sat alone by the window, watching the rain streak down the glass, and understood clearly that some questions, once asked aloud, cannot simply be set aside. Less than 2 hours after leaving the palace, Tom reached Harry through a private contact channel, a number known to very few people, the kind that only surfaces after years of careful sourcing. The message was brief and ice cold. He had just met with William. What he shared in that room was only a fraction of what he knew. If Harry wanted the rest of it handled quietly, he needed to make contact before Tom was forced to take things public. Harry was in Montecito. It was late. He was sitting outside with a warm drink when his phone lit up. In an instant, the ease of the evening evaporated. His face hardened. His grip on the phone tightened until the casing creaked. He called back immediately, his voice shaking with barely contained fury. "Who gave you this number? What do you think you're doing, threatening my family? Meghan carried our son. Archie is our biological child. Say another word and I will bury you in court." On the other end, Tom remained steady. "Prince Harry, I am not threatening anyone. I am offering you and your wife an opportunity to get ahead of this, but the questions will be asked by me, by others, or eventually by the public. That choice belongs to you." Harry ended the call so hard the screen nearly fractured. He paced the room, jaw clenched, unable to settle. Meghan sat close by, silent, a cushion pressed against her chest. Her face had gone pale. She said nothing, but her eyes held something she could not quite hide, a deep, concentrated fear. When Harry turned to her, she held his gaze and kept her voice steady. "We stay calm. We don't let him see that this lands. We cannot let this unravel what we've spent years building." They said the right things to each other, but their behavior in the hours and days that followed told a different story. Their team went into overdrive, reviewing every piece of content from the pregnancy period. Contact with the outside world narrowed sharply. 2 scheduled interviews were canceled, attributed to well-being concerns. Inside the Montecito home, the atmosphere turned heavy and airless. Harry moved restlessly through the rooms, checking his phone, running his hand through his hair, muttering to himself. "We left all of this behind. We chose freedom, and now they're pulling us back in." William didn't come to this on his own. He would never have moved without being pushed. Meghan was quieter, but her mind was clearly moving fast. She understood the arithmetic of scandal. A story like this, amplified, uncontained, would not just damage them personally, it would dismantle the brand, the foundation, the partnerships, the credibility they had constructed piece by piece since leaving the institution. That night, neither of them slept well. The following morning, lawyers and communication strategists gathered. The directive was straightforward: deny firmly, deflect specifically, and prepare contingencies for every scenario. Harry still said publicly that there was nothing to hide, but privately the calculation had changed. Something had frightened them, and it showed. Back at Kensington Palace, William was doing something he had rarely allowed himself to do. He was going back through the years with fresh eyes. He closed his office door, sat down, and began pulling at threads he had previously left alone. Meghan's pregnancy with Archie had always carried certain peculiarities that William had, at the time, attributed to the pressures of royal life and a difficult adjustment. Now those same details looked different. Important family gatherings had been missed repeatedly. At his wife, Catherine's birthday, celebrated warmly at the family's Norfolk estate, Harry had given a vague excuse. Meghan wasn't well. The pregnancy required rest. William had accepted that at face value. That Christmas at Sandringham, the whole family gathered except for the Sussexes. A brief video call, a few warm words, no details. The final weeks of the pregnancy were the most striking. Harry and Meghan had gone effectively silent. No appearances, no updates, no communication within the family. And then, on a night in early May 2019, Harry called, voice bright, words tumbling out, to say that Archie had arrived. Overjoyed, other senior family members arranged to come immediately. They waited nearly half a day. "He's sleeping. The doctors have asked us to keep the environment calm," Harry explained when they finally arrived. William had smiled and nodded, but something had registered even then. With George, Charlotte, and Louis, the newborn had been brought to meet close family within hours. That was simply how it was done, not because protocol demanded it coldly, but because new life was celebrated immediately, openly. Archie's introduction was different, quieter, more managed. The first formal photographs, when they came, were distant. The baby's face was partially obscured. The whole thing had a careful, controlled quality that William, reviewing it now from a distance of years, could no longer set aside. He instructed a small, trusted group, not the official royal machinery, but people who had worked alongside him personally for years, to begin going back through everything: medical scheduling records, travel logs, staffing reports from the Sussex household during that period, public appearances cross-referenced against private movements. He told them to be thorough and to be discreet. What they assembled was unsettling. During the final trimester, Meghan had made almost no public appearances, unusual even for a closely guarded royal pregnancy. Private transatlantic travel in the later months had no medical documentation attached to it. The pregnancy photographs released publicly were, without exception, taken from distance or angles that obscured detail. Former household staff had noted that Meghan had very limited contact with royal medical personnel during the most sensitive period of the pregnancy. William set down the reports and looked out at the London skyline for a long time. He did not want this to be true, but he could no longer pretend the questions didn't exist. He called Harry directly. It was late evening in California when the phone rang. Harry answered, still half asleep, then instantly alert when he heard his brother's voice. William spoke carefully. "Harry, I need to speak with you honestly. I have been looking back at the period surrounding Archie's birth, and I cannot reconcile what I'm finding. I don't want to believe the worst, but I need the truth from you. Not the statement from your lawyers, not a press release. From you." The silence lasted several seconds. Then Harry's voice came back. Not calm, but cracking at the edges with pain and anger. "So this is what it's come to? You've been listening to people who want to destroy us, and now you're their instrument? Meghan gave birth to our son. Archie is our child. How many times and in how many ways do we have to say it before our own family believes us? You were supposed to be my brother." His voice rose. "We left so we could live without this surveillance, without this judgment, and now you're the one conducting it. Don't call me again with these accusations." He was gone. The line went dead. Within the hour, the Sussex's legal team filed a formal written response to the palace. It was thorough and professionally constructed. Meghan's pregnancy had been classified as high risk, requiring specialized private care in the United States under the supervision of her personal physician. The extended delay before family could meet Archie was on direct medical advice, strict rest protocols following the birth. The limited photographic record from the pregnancy was an intentional privacy decision, consistent with their stated values and fully within their rights. Every point was addressed, every irregularity explained. William read it carefully, twice. Part of him, the part that still remembered climbing trees with Harry as a boy, the part that had stood beside him through grief and ceremony and life, wanted to accept it. Perhaps Tom had drawn him into a spiral of suspicion with no real foundation. Perhaps he was letting doubt corrode something that had already been damaged enough. But the other part of him, the part that understood what the crown demanded, what his position required, what millions of people had entrusted to the institution he would one day lead, kept returning to the same question. Why, in all this time, had no independent evidence ever been offered? Not a medical record from a named physician, not a witness outside the couple's inner circle, not a single verifiable document. He stood at his window and watched the city below move through its evening routines. He had no clean choice available to him. Silence meant complicity if the truth were ever to surface, but pursuit meant the possible destruction of his relationship with the only brother he had. Both paths led somewhere painful. The investigation would continue. While William was drawing his quiet lines in London, Harry and Meghan were preparing to fight openly. Early the following morning, Meghan posted an extended statement through the Archwell Foundation, shared simultaneously across their platforms, accompanied by a carefully chosen family photograph rendered in black and white. The tone was fierce and emotional. The British royal establishment, she wrote, was engaged in a coordinated campaign to smear her family with fabrications, to strip her children of their standing because she and Harry dared to choose authenticity over institutional obedience. She carried Archie. She endured the physical and emotional weight of that pregnancy. These accusations were not merely false, they were an assault on every parent who had ever been scrutinized unfairly, on every person who had ever faced institutional power and refused to be silent. Harry amplified it immediately. Our children are not weapons in a political fight. The truth will hold. It always does. The response generated millions of engagements within hours. International headlines followed. Celebrity voices in America offered their solidarity. On social media, the narrative of a vulnerable couple being hunted by an ancient, vindictive institution spread rapidly. But in Britain, the reaction was more complex. Commentators noted what hadn't appeared alongside the statement: no medical records, no named doctors, no independent witnesses, no photographs from the pregnancy that could be clearly verified. The contrast with Catherine's 3 pregnancies, each documented openly, each marked with public appearances and confirmed by the palace medical team, became impossible for the British press to ignore. The couple had fought back with enormous force, but in doing so, they had also drawn more attention to what remained unanswered. Public opinion began to fracture. Even some who had supported them found themselves wondering why, given the simplicity of producing evidence, the couple continued to produce only words. Meghan tracked every development from home, her expression increasingly taut. She told Harry quietly one evening that they could not give an inch. The moment they showed anything less than total confidence, it would be read as confirmation. Harry agreed, but he also knew that the counteroffensive, for all its power, had not quieted the story, it had amplified it. And then William made it official. He appeared before cameras at the palace in a formal statement, measured, grave, and absolute. He did not perform anger. He did not appear to relish the moment. He looked like a man fulfilling an obligation he would never have wished would fall on him. He said that the silence had gone on long enough. He said that too many specific, documentable irregularities existed in the account of Meghan's pregnancy and Archie's birth for the institution to continue treating them as resolved. He said he was not interested in destroying his brother, but he was bound, by his position, by his obligation to the people who trusted the monarchy to operate with transparency, to ask for what any fair-minded person would consider a basic standard of proof: independent medical documentation, verifiable records. If questions remained that had clear answers, there was no reason those answers could not be provided. The statement traveled around the world in hours. 3 days later, the formal ultimatum came through the royal office. Within 3 months, if no verifiable evidence was forthcoming, hospital records, independent medical witnesses, and DNA verification if circumstances required, Archie would lose all financial support, titles, and royal standing. The reaction split the world cleanly in two. Critics called William ruthless, a man using an innocent child as a bargaining chip in a family feud. Supporters called him the first senior royal in years to hold the line on institutional accountability. Harry, watching from California, put his fist through nothing but his own restraint. William has made his choice. He is no longer acting as my brother. He is acting as an institution. Meghan sat close, her face drawn, her voice almost inaudible. We will get through this. We have to. In the weeks that followed, no new evidence was released. The Sussexes continued to deny everything. William continued to wait. Archie, too young to understand any of it, remained at the center of something none of this was ever supposed to be about. Whatever the next 3 months would bring, the rupture between the two brothers had passed the point where ordinary repair was possible. The family that had stood together through the most public forms of grief and celebration had come apart in a way that no statement, no summit, and no apology would easily undo. The questions hung over everything, and until genuine answers arrived, from somewhere, from someone, the doubt would remain, burning quietly, refusing to go out. What would you do in their position? Would you stay silent and hold the line? Or would you put the evidence forward and end it? Tell us below. If you found this compelling, like and share it, and don't miss the next video waiting for you on screen right now.